Welcome to Hey, Great Shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Racquets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we've got another live edition of The Deciding Point, where we break down everything happening across the Division I college tennis world. Of course, here on Tuesday nights, we focus on the Division I women's action. But before we do, just a heads up to all of you college tennis fans out there. I cannot believe we are already here. But this weekend, it's the last weekend of regular season conference play for the Big 12, the ACC, and SEC conferences. Now, there will still be an additional weekend for the Big 10. There will still be conference play happening across the country, as well as conference tournaments the subsequent week. We are not quite at the NCAA tournament yet, but every result from here on in, it's going to factor into our outlook on how we view the postseason. And yeah, now's the time where you can really start crunching the numbers. Which teams have a pathway still to the top 8? Which teams have a pathway still to the top 16? I know our dear friend Chris Halioris' website, his what-if calculator, his projected rankings, they are never more used than in the month here of April as we try to figure things out. But before we get there, it was another fantastic weekend of Division I women's college tennis action. And joining me on the podcast once again to help break it all down, a man you all know best as the returning champion of returning champions to this show. He's, of course, also the founder of the No Ad, No Problem blog and podcast, our on-the-ground correspondent for so much of what happens throughout the college tennis season. It's our dearest friend, John J. Parsons, joining us once again. Jay, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show again. Where we are on the calendar Has it hit you yet that we have less than a month left till the start of the postseason?
Yeah, no, it didn't hit me until this week. And I realized that this past weekend was the penultimate weekend for conferences like the SEC and the ACC. It really flew by. I felt like the time between indoors and where we are now, just, I don't know where it went.
Yeah, absolutely shocking. Penultimate, one of my favorite words. So shout out to you for using that here. And yeah, it's just it is remarkable, and this is what I wanted our opening tangent to be before we get into this past weekend of play. As far as we now are on the calendar, just a quick step back, 10,000-foot view. How much has really changed since the start of January? Yeah, we filled in a few pieces in new places, but we kind of knew coming into the season, given what Georgia, Texas A&M were bringing back, they would be the two teams everyone is chasing. And lo and behold, here on April 8th, that's exactly where things stand. We knew beyond that the SEC had some really good teams, but things might get messy between them. And lo and behold, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, Tennessee, who have all had new pieces fit so beautifully into their lineups, they've all beaten each other up. Similarly, on the ACC side, Cal and Stanford and UNC, NC State, they've all beaten each other up. Virginia, obviously, they've all beaten each other up. Well, Duke has found a way to escape, particularly after this weekend, and rise to the top. I mean, again, teams have shuffled places, but big picture, I don't know if anything's changed, certainly since the indoors, and maybe you go further back than that.
Yeah, narrative wise, nothing has changed. We knew that coming into the season, your 2024 NCAA finalists, Texas A&M and Georgia, hardly lose any pieces from those teams were going to be the teams to beat this season, and they have been the teams to beat. Now, who exactly those teams are that are next tier up, you've had some movement there. We had some teams that we thought might be there, like a Stanford or an Oklahoma State, that they're not in that group of next teams up, but that next tier up is a wide tier. And so other teams have moved up, like LSU is maybe in that conversation. We probably wouldn't have had them there in January, but narratively wise, when it comes to the NCAAs, it's the same old.
I also think of, have we had any paradigm shifting upsets at all this season? And truly, the answer to that question is no. Like, I know UNC beat Georgia before the indoors, but that didn't feel paradigm shifting. I know we have had a few upsets certainly along the way. Vanderbilt beating Texas A&M was probably the biggest surprise of the SEC season. But, like, again, a lot of teams have played Georgia and Texas A&M close. If you've monitored the matches, if you've actually looked at the box score and not just the score line itself. So, yeah, those teams have been challenged, but for the most part, they've escaped. Like, again, Virginia, their loss to Cal at home, that felt inevitable given how many times they had escaped a loss like that to that point in the season. I know Michigan had a tough weekend, Duke, NC State wise, but they've been undefeated in Big Ten play since. Like, yeah, it felt like the Big 12 might get messy when UCF beat Oklahoma State that first weekend, but since then everything's been pretty straightforward. Sans the one UCF loss. I don't know. Am I missing an upset result on that list, Jay? I don't think we've had anything that's made you drop your jaw and be like, wait, what? I mean, the UCLA loss to San Diego State, fine, but like not really from a big picture narrative changing perspective.
You've had losses, I would
Yeah.
say, of teams moving downward, but this is a glass half full podcast, like I've learned. So I think if we're looking at Georgia and Texas A&M, the big loss there was Texas A&M losing to Vanderbilt that made you go, whoa, never saw that coming. But it hasn't changed the paradigm. Again, there have been teams that have fallen out of this conversation, but the teams that were at the top of this conversation, they are still there.
No, there's one team in particular who, coming into the season, you would have thought would have factored at the top of this conversation that has not. That's the team I want to start talking about today as we look back at last weekend. That team, of course, is obviously Stanford, who have dealt with so many different injuries throughout the course of this season. And, again, Blokina turns pro, and Yepifanova's been out, Huea's been out. I do this every time. I'll never know her name. India Houghton. I do know
There
it,
you
but I
go.
have to think about it for a second and pretend to ask you. I'm like, obviously, because of that, the entire context of this Stanford season has to be seen differently. Stanford has been frisky, and we talked about it at the Just Over Halfway Mark podcast a couple of weeks ago, how Valerie Glossman's been the best freshman in the country by results. Connie Ma has been undefeated in dual match play, and, with Valencia Shu serving underhand and retiring in a lot of singles matches, they've had to win doubles. Those two have to win up top, and they got to find one more, whether it be a Caroline Driscoll or whomever else might be stepping up on a given day. Again, Stanford almost pulled another one of those matches out in their battle with Duke this weekend, as did Cal. And, again, tough to pick which match was more dramatic given the fact that it was Elena Yu, the former Stanford Cardinal, clinching over Stanford. Like, that's drama. That's what we live for in this sport. On the other side, ending on a match overruling Duke's win over Cal. Again, I said put the A in ACC because it was the Atlantic Coast teams, Duke, UNC, going out west and earning two massive 2-0 weekends. Duke's 4-3 wins over Cal, Stanford. Where I want to start, Jay. I don't know. Which one intrigued you most over the course of the weekend? Talk to me about what you saw from Duke.
Well, Duke didn't look good in their win over Stanford. That was a winning ugly win. And Stanford looked pretty strong 1 through 4. I mean, Caroline Driscoll beating Emma Jackson 4-4. We've talked about Caroline Driscoll in the past. She's looking really good for that Stanford team. But on the Duke side, ugly win against Cal. They might not have won that match had Greta Greco not been defaulted at 6-5 in the third. That came down and decided that match. An unfortunate ending for sure. And it was a little bit less dramatic for Elena Yu to clinch, certainly for her to clinch against her former teammate, but she was up a set in 3-0, and it was a straight set win at the end of the day. So that Cal win was certainly far more dramatic with the default. But Duke escapes, and I was reflecting back on your opening tangent last week when you were wondering if Duke is in that top tier. And I said, let's wait till see what this weekend holds. And they're not in that top tier. They are not at the Georgia Texas A&M tier. They were lucky to win both of these matches.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I don't know that coming off of this. I mean, again, and it gets back to something I just said. Georgia's been pushed like this. A&M's been pushed like this. And both of those teams were able to come out of those sorts of matches with victories. You look for Georgia this weekend in their win.
I had to stop you. They're being pushed by top 10 teams.
Yeah, so
Duke is being pushed by Stanford.
Yeah, that's true. But Stanford's
without Valencia Shu in the lineup, mind you.
Yeah. I mean, again, you are right, but as a top team should, that they win doubles and then win 4, 5, and 6. That's what they need to do against a team like Stanford. And they did go out and do it. And it is just worth remembering that this team is really 2 months into its season, not 4 months into this season like everyone else because of the late addition of Hovde. And just, again, Hovde goes 1-1 this weekend. Ballas goes 0-2 this weekend. There was something to that note of, hey, they are still really young up top. And you do feel like the best teams, whether it's a Bennett Okatoye 1-2 duo, whether it's a Tomase Aaliyah 1-2 duo for Tennessee, whomever it may be, teams in that top 8 could go after Duke in those top spots. But again, to look as good as they have in doubles, to look as good as they did 4, 5, 6 against Stanford, I know they had to grind there, but they did ultimately get those 3 wins. Against Cal as well, they get the wins at 5 and 6, and win the doubles point there. A good win from Hovde over Mushika at the 1 spot. I guess here's my point. I don't know if they are the top tier like Georgia and A&M, but I do think they have earned the distinction to be best of the rest.
I have Michigan at 3.
Okay. You hold firm. Despite, I do think this was great for Duke. I think they needed wins like this desperately to get pushed like this desperately. And it always helps to come out on top in a situation like this. Again, this was their first real road test as this group. And they did go out and get the 2 4-3 wins.
I feel worse about Duke after seeing them play in person than I did after they...
Yeah, so you saw it in person. So I defer to you. Give me, what was the experience?
I mean, you can't look at, the players that are competing respectfully for Stanford at 5 and 6 are not D1
They're not top 8. They're not on the level. Yeah.
They're not on the level. So I don't really care that Duke won 2-0 and 0-0 at those positions. That should happen. They also had to pull Valencia Shu, right? They were completely non-competitive at 1 and 2. But Ballas got crushed. She looked terrible. Hovde completely didn't compete in the second set against Valerie Glossman. uh, Emma Jackson probably shouldn't be losing to Caroline Driscoll. And Elena Yu really struggled with Chidima Okpara. And they did not look good. So I feel worse about them now, seeing them struggle against these teams, than I did after they looked really good against North Carolina.
Fair enough. They're good at doubles. Again, 2-0
They're
weekend. Go ahead.
that is like that's an Achilles heel for them. Duke and doubles do not go hand in hand this season.
I mean, they go 2-0 this weekend in the doubles
Again,
point. But you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. I'm just saying. Yeah, the Cal match was so fascinating. This is one I'm sad. I made a promise to Michael. He was like, dude, don't, if I see you on your phone checking tennis scores, because I know you'll have an inclination to do it. So I didn't. What a fast, like, I do you know more about the ending? You mentioned the overrule there. Can you expand?
I mean, the ITA changed their rules this season, so you get your first point penalty on it. So you get a first overrule, you lose the point. You get a second overrule, you get a point penalty. Third overrule, a game. Fourth, a default. Greta Greco, 6-5 in the third, up 15 love on Kim Hee's serve. She gets overruled. That was her fourth overrule of the match. She is defaulted.
Were you watching on the stream?
I was, and the play site set summary, which happens to randomly pop up at times when it shouldn't, was up during this portion of both the overrule and all of the ensuing drama afterwards.
All right, fair enough. Well, again, Cal close, like Cal pushed them. Cal was really close in both of their matches, and
Yeah, I
certainly
feel
again,
much better about Cal after
yeah,
this weekend.
Cal on the comeback trail, almost able to pull that match out against Duke. They fall there 4-3. They also drop a heartbreaker 4-2 against UNC, a UNC team who you could argue had their best weekend of the season in 4-2 victories over Cal, 4-0 victory over Stanford in the Cal match for North Carolina. They Tar Heels come out. They also able to grab the doubles point, and they have gone back to Brantmeyer Hamilton at 1. They had Evans and Radman at the 2 spot, Tangillig with Zink at 3, but they get the wins at 1 and 2. And then again, for Brantmeyer to continue to look as good as she has all season long, progressively better. She gets a straight set win over Mushika. We mentioned it at the just over halfway pod. Whomever is the 5 between Evans, Hamilton, or in this case Carson Tangillig, that's got to be a spot UNC takes. In this instance, it's Tangillig 2-2 over Greco Lukina. And then how about Claire Hill, a 3-3 victory in the return of senior Katja Wiersholm for Cal. Best win on paper, certainly, for the UNC freshman so far in her career. Huge victory for them over Cal. Obviously, you mentioned it, facing off against a shorthanded Stanford team. UNC able to win that match comfortably. They grab the doubles point. They get wins at 3, 4, 6. Great weekend for the Heels, Jay.
Yeah, it was a solid weekend. I'm more impressed by that Cal win, although
Yeah.
for Cal to turn around and play that match less than 24 hours after that Duke loss is really tough. It was much closer in the latter stages of this lineup for Stanford than I would ever have expected against North Carolina. So it was a fine weekend for North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, again, good win for Hamilton. 3 sets over Okpara, freshman on the road against a fifth year. Like, she should win that match. She did win that match, and again, two
She
six
should
six one.
she should win that match by the second and third set scoreline. She shouldn't be dropping that first set.
Fair, but that she did win by the second and third set scorelines is like, all right, come on, let's get it together. And she was able to do that on the road, so a big victory for her. And again, Tatum Evans 5-4 over Caroline Driscoll, who's been so solid all year long. Very good win for the sophomore, but yeah, again, like, it is interesting looking at the UNC resume of like, all right, what's their pathway to a top 8 seed? And right now, you look at the projected rankings, they're kind of right on the bubble. I believe they're sitting at 8 according to College Tennis Ranks. You look at the new rankings that came out on the from the ITA side this week, they're currently sitting at 6. They have the win over Georgia. Obviously, that's a massive win, number 1. Now they have the win over Cal to add to their resume. They have the win over NC State to add to their resume. I forget who they beat round 1 of the national indoors, but I'm sure that's one of their better wins on the resume as well. I mean, again, like, this Stanford win for a Stanford team that's going to be outside the top 25, like, they're going to have it or on their amongst their top 10 wins. It's going to be fascinating because, like, when you run the final rankings as high as they are, UVA is going to get that double UNC boost. And I just do wonder if in the end there's going to be room for both, given all the SEC top 8 teams, Auburn, Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, they've all beaten each other.
Well, yeah, and Duke is up to 3 in the projected ranking, so
Yeah.
you assume there might be only room for 2 in from the ACC.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, they had to have a weekend like this. They get it. Looking at the ACC conference standings, by the way, this was a big weekend in terms of sort of helping to sort things out for conference tournament seeding. Again, Duke one loss, Duke no losses, UNC one, UVA, NC State, Cal each 2 losses, and yeah, those are pretty clearly the 5 best teams, the top 16 clear-cut teams in the ACC. Although we're going to talk Notre Dame a little bit later because I'm fascinated by them, but still, again, putting the A in ACC, UNC, Duke, the sweep of Cal, Stanford, respectively, of course. Given the penultimate weekend of SEC play is ahead, it's just fitting that we had another fantastic weekend, as the SEC has delivered each and every weekend, it feels like, of this 2025 regular season. Jay, it's been my favorite game. Which impressed you most? Oklahoma, 4-1 over LSU, an LSU team that, of course, it is worth noting during the course of that match, ultimately no Kayla Cross for singles in that one, although I do believe they had her available for doubles, if my memory is working correctly here. You go Auburn, 4-2 over Tennessee. Again, very good win for the Tigers. We can go into more depth there. Or the Vanderbilt weekend. 5-2 win over South Carolina, which kind of puts them in that, hey, no, we're the team fighting for that last SEC top 16 seed. And then again, playing Georgia as competitively as they did. 4-3 win ultimately for the Bulldogs, but Vandy was right there in that match. Jay, Oklahoma, Auburn, Vandy. Who impressed you most the weekend?
Well, first of all, for those only listening to this as a podcast, the headline of this section is the SEC sorts itself out. I would say the SEC has not sorted itself out. This pack of teams that we talk about week after week, they're all beating each other. So there's no sorting each other out. In terms of what I was
Can
most
I push
impressed.
back just to that point? Here's what
Okay.
I mean by sorted out. All of these teams have proven to me that they are of a top 8 level. Now, can I delineate who is the best amongst the pack? No, I cannot. But here's what I mean by sort that out is it's just kind of pretty clear looking at the SEC standings that again, Georgia and A&M are the top 2 teams. Obviously, they're the top 2 teams in the conference right now. 0, 1 loss, respectively. And by the way, they're going to play again here this weekend, the first of potentially 3 matchups that could come up over the next month. After that, there's a pack. 9-4 Auburn, 9-4 LSU, 9-4 Oklahoma, 9-4 Vandy, 9-4 Tennessee. Those 5 teams are top 16 level. Like that's what I guess, and they have now proven it consecutively over the course of conference play. If you had any questions, like no, that's the group.
Yeah, that is for sure the group, and they deliver each and every weekend. They give us some great matches. The 2 matches I'll talk about here, I mean, the best win, I think, for the respective program was Auburn over Tennessee, just because I felt like those 2 teams were of a similar level. And for Auburn to get that win on the road is a huge win for that program. And getting that win without DJ Bennett at the top of that lineup. And the fact that they got doubles has been a tough point for them to get. So that was a really good showing for Auburn. I was impressed with what Oklahoma did against LSU. The way that they took advantage of no Kayla Cross, they really dominated 2 through 5 in singles. Julia Garcia Ruiz getting a 1-1 win over Dilworth. Tilworth is a great win.
Yeah. And one of her better wins that she's picked up after struggling for a lot of the middle of this season. On the Tennessee note, to your point, Auburn winning that match, they grabbed the doubles point, straight set win from Okotoye at 2, Harastar at 3, and then the win from Batesti at 6. Lost in that match because it was an Auburn win. Tomase 0-1 over DJ Bennett on senior day. Sorry, I'm going to swear live. That's fucking awesome. Like, you just love that in college tennis, a moment like that for her to get that sort of win. Like, it was the sort of day Tennessee needed. But, yeah, I don't want to say the season had slipped away from Auburn, but it did feel like they were playing their best tennis in February, more so than they had been throughout this SEC season. And to get a win like this with postseason play on the horizon, it's just perfectly riding the ship with. By the way, they've got another big match weekend ahead. Still one more to go. The matchup we've all been waiting for with LSU, with all sorts of top 8 implications. But yeah, like this was a massive win for Auburn. I will go with the Oklahoma win just because of the significance of like they're up to 4, I think, right now in the rankings because of this
Crazy.
win. Yeah, and It is fascinating when you look at the Oklahoma resume, as I did here today in preparation for this show, outside of the 4-3 loss to Texas. Like, that's their bad loss of the season. Their other losses, they've lost twice to Texas A&M. They lost 4-3 to Tennessee, and then a 4-0 loss to Georgia. But everyone's losing to Georgia. 4-3 at Texas for a team that's this young is not that bad of a loss given the context of where it was in the season. They have now, though, beaten Auburn. They've beaten LSU. Like, they've beaten South Carolina. They've beaten Vanderbilt. They've beaten Michigan. Like, they kind of deserve the number 4 ranking by resume. And I think this win was a reminder and a kind of an exclamation point of that fact. Like, talk about sorting itself out. They have the most wins of the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's really disappointing is that there wasn't any Kayla Cross in singles, and
Very fair. Very fair.
like this is the part that really is unfortunate about these semi-pros in college tennis right now is you have these caveats, and you're going to have an underseeded LSU team because of it, right? I don't think Kayla Cross is going to be there for the Auburn match this weekend. She's probably going to be at Billie Jean King Cup representing Canada. They're going to lose to Auburn. You look at Auburn, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. They're going to go 0-3 against those teams. They could go 3-0 against those teams with her in the mix. They're going to be underseeded for NCAAs. This is what happened with Carson Brandstein last year. A little bit of a different situation, but still unfortunate.
No,
But
very good call by you.
on paper, Oklahoma gets the win. They look good doing it. They can't control who's in that lineup. And now they're up to 4. And this, to me, just reflects the fact that you could really choose any of these teams that are sitting right now between 3 and 12 and make a case for them to be at the top end of that.
No, absolutely. And by the way, just the case for Vanderbilt, they lost 1-2, Hamner and Carnicella getting wins against South Carolina, and they sweep the 3-6 spots. They grab doubles as well. That's how you separate as you make that push for the top 16. And then again, the Georgia match, they go out and beat Rojas at the number 6 spot. They go out and beat Grant at the number 5 spot. You know, CB pushes Vidmanova to 3 sets. Lapata Valeria Ray, 3-set match. That match was awesome. Georgia had to dig deep, and they were able to do so. And, again, for Dasha to get the clinch at home in one of her final matches at home, obviously another cool moment for a senior. But, yeah, they pushed Georgia. This Vanderbilt team, if they had Kayla Cross, you could say a lot. They would be right in that. You'd be even more certain about them in that conversation. They've kind of flown under the radar because of it. But this team, as I was making my list for the top 16, which we'll talk about later, they're on it. They are one of the 16 best teams right now, very clearly.
Yeah, they were so close to having wins over the 1 and 2 teams in the country. They were so close.
Come as close as anyone. And again, they beat A&M, one of 2 teams who can say that in this 2025 season. So we see you, Vanderbilt, and yeah, we see what has been a very, very fun SEC regular season. And the best part, the case to every conference, and, again, a bunch of them, Big Ten, ACC, they're not playing everyone. Just look at what the SEC has produced this weekend. Look at how it's helped them rankings-wise. All of these teams still have top 8 pathways to get, and we'll get to play things out in the conference championship. Do it. It's worthwhile. Just do it. Moving forward, that said, that's the SEC recap.
Yeah,
and
projected rankings this week, 8 SEC teams in the top 14.
That's pretty good, right? Yeah.
I think it's pretty good.
By the way, we're going to talk about Kentucky later, too, who's just my frisky team of the year. There's just been good SEC play top to bottom all season long, and all these teams are calloused up, certainly. Even Missouri would be a tough out right now. Just look at the score lines they've been putting up every week. It's not your typical 4-0s that you'd seen over the past couple of seasons. They're playing everyone tough. Obviously, the win over Florida this year, but again, some fun teams in the SEC still. There are many other storylines that have permeated throughout this season that maybe we haven't spent a ton of time on on this show, but I could have gone on a tangent here or there. I try to keep us as focused as possible, but I want to hit some other storylines here, Jay, as we get towards the end of this 2025 regular season. And one of those storylines is we do have an undefeated team in Division I women's college tennis. Now, it's not Wake Forest, whatever they're at now, 29-0, I suppose, and national indoor champions, beating all the best teams in the country. It's not that sort of resume. But, man, FAU is 14-0, and it's April 8th. And it's kind of, we saw Denver go undefeated in regular season play on the men's side last season. It was really impressive. They never cracked the top 30. FAU's sitting at 27 in the rankings, and it hasn't been the most arduous pathway to 14-0, but they've beaten Miami. They beat UCF earlier this season, albeit a different UCF than we see now. They've gotten good wins over Tulane, Tulsa. They've got the regular season finale against FIU coming up on Saturday. They're a match away from undefeated. That's pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They faced one top 25 team, UCF, right? They're in Florida. They could play other teams like a Florida or, I mean, they've played Miami, but yeah, I mean,
No,
the
but Florida
schedule is
State's
not
getting better as this season has progressed.
another good team they could have played. It also feels like what they're 14-0.
Yeah.
Do they know they have another 10 matches they could use? They have another 10 dates.
This team is good, and again, the numbers are all built up because they've earned a lot of victories. So, of course, everyone's resume is pretty gaudy. I got the chance to call their match against Memphis, and like this team has some serious weapons up top. They've got some grinders down low. They're just going to be such a tough out because this team does know how to win. Memphis pushed them. They were up in a bunch of first sets and up early in doubles. And again, Memphis isn't North Carolina. Memphis isn't Virginia. But this FAU team is good. Like, they've got some serious weapons in serious places. They play really good doubles. I was impressed by what I saw, and again, respect the 14-0, even if, yes, you do feel like they left some dates on the table. That's one storyline I've been monitoring, though, Jeff.
I think Wake Forest was 14-0 before indoors.
Wake Forest was 14-0 in January. Again, they like to rack up those double headers. They have to do 2 senior days, Senior Day 1 and Senior Day 2. But that's one storyline just to keep an eye on. Undefeated watch there. We also were keeping an eye on Wisconsin, who has not been undefeated, but been pretty darn close to it all season long as, again, they've played an interesting schedule so far here in 2025. It was a big opportunity this weekend as they were taking on USC, UCLA, and unfortunately for Wisconsin, knocked off by both the Trojans and Bruins respectively. Against the Trojans, a 4-1 win for USC at USC, of course, at home this weekend. They take the doubles point. They get wins at the 3, 4, 5 spots, although albeit those 4 and 5 wins in 3 sets. Again, competitive match there. Competitive match against UCLA as well. The Bruins ultimately the 4-3 victory clinched at the number 4 spot by freshman Katie McKee. Yeah, look, it was interesting. AC Lukemire knocking off Shalikova at the number 1 spot. I believe that's her first dual match loss of this 2025 season. Wisconsin was in the fight there. Again, came down to the 3-setter at 4, which McKee ultimately takes. You can go glass half empty, glass half full. The glass half empty is probably means Wisconsin, barring a Big Ten championship run, they're not going to be a top 16 seed. These matches were close. Like, Wisconsin is top 25, and given who they had played so far this season, I think it was fair to question that. I mean, to say they're top 25 coming off of 2 losses is a very rosy take, but these were competitive matches.
I mean, the UCLA match was competitive, but UCLA has been competitive with a lot of teams that we weren't expecting this season. They've lost to some teams we wouldn't expect this season. I don't think you can say Wisconsin is confidently a top 25 team. I mean, their best win is over like an Iowa team that's probably overranked right now at 28. So are they around that range? Sure. This was a big opportunity for them to go out west and get some away wins over top 25 competition. And they were close against UCLA, a little less close against USC. But they didn't really look the part of second tier Big Ten team here.
I think they did look the part of second tier Big Ten team. I think what this tells us is the second tier of the Big Ten, you get maybe one top 16 seed out of that group. Again, Michigan, Ohio State are going to be top 16 seeds. Looking at the rankings right now, USC is 16 in the ITA rankings. You look at the projected rankings for the Trojans, and again, this win over Wisconsin, their win over Washington, 2 of their biggest wins on the season so far. USC right now currently sitting at 17 in the projected rankings. Yeah, they're fast. Like, again, I've been intrigued by that team all season long. It, too, they haven't played the most jam-packed schedule here in 2025. Was a massive win for them to get that win over Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean UCLA is not going to be a top 25, top 16 seed. Can tell you that one confidently now. I still think they're going to be dangerous come the postseason, given some of the institutional knowledge they have, the strength in doubles. But yeah, it was an opportunity for Wisconsin to say, no, we are a 16 seed, a top 16 team. We just went on the road and got these two West Coast victories, and unfortunately for them, they weren't able to do that. We'll examine resumes at next week's show as regular seasons come to a close. But yeah, again, tough miss there for Wisconsin. Last up, I have three teams, Jay, that I have qualified as the conundrums as I look at the remainder of this 2025 season, given we have 1 weekend left of conference play or 2 weekends left for these teams. I don't know what to do, and just listen to these records superficially. 17-4 Notre Dame, 18-4 Baylor, and then this one's really fun. You look for this Washington team so far this season. Washington entering the weekend 16-2 overall on the year. On the Notre Dame side, 17-4. They don't play UNC. They don't play Duke. They don't play Stanford. They don't play Cal in 2025 ACC play. They do get a great win, 4-2 over Georgia Tech here
Their
this
best
weekend.
win of the season.
Yeah, and they have some experience. Beckman, Matsuno, Ghosh. Like, this team is good. I think Posner is a big hitting sophomore who can be dangerous on the right day. Like, I've gotten to see them compete as much as anyone this year. I like them. I have no idea how good they are. Baylor, coming off of a weekend where they sweep the Arizona schools, 4-0 over Arizona, 4-3 over Arizona State. You look at the rankings right now, by the way, just for all these teams. Notre Dame currently at 24. You look for Baylor. They're currently sitting at 23 in the rankings. I mean, again, all the matches they've lost would be to teams you would, quote-unquote, expect them, I suppose, to lose to. Again, the 4-3 loss for them to Texas earlier this season. The loss to UCF 5-2, Texas Tech 4-2, Oklahoma State 4-0. There's no bad losses in that. There's no signature wins for this Baylor team thus far. Similarly for Washington, they got a good win, 4-2 over Pepperdine, a Pepperdine team that will not be top 16 here this season. Is extraordinarily young. Again, that's a good win. In 2025, it's not a signature win. I mean, again, this team's beaten solid Arizona State team, solid San Diego team. They beat UCLA as well. Wins over Northwestern, Illinois, now this Pepperdine win. Those are all quality wins. I have no idea how good this Washington team is. I look forward to finding out as they take on Michigan this weekend. But, Jay, is it fair to call these teams the conundrums, the gaudy records, and yet you're still not sure quite what the ceiling looks like?
I think we know the ceiling of Baylor for sure, given that they have faced a handful of these top 20 teams and they've lost, right? And
Okay.
they've beaten basically everyone else. Washington, we sort of want to see that matchup with Michigan. We need to see how they fare in the Big Ten tournament. And then who was the other one?
Notre Dame, who 17-4 overall, just for the record, the 4 losses so far: 6-1 to Ohio State, 4-2 NC State,
Yeah, the
4-1
Miami
Virginia,
loss.
and then the bad loss to Miami.
Yeah, yeah. Um, that one's tough. I mean, ceiling is tough as well because they're not facing the best of the ACC schools in Duke and North Carolina. So I feel like Baylor's the most known quantity. Then I would go Notre Dame just because my expectations are a little bit lower, and then Washington.
Do any of those teams right now have enough for you to call them top 16?
I think Washington is at the top of this pack here for sure. I mean, they're
Mm.
sitting right projected at 16
Yeah, and
next
they're
week.
currently 17 in the ITA rankings.
Yeah, so they're right on the cusp, and certainly they have an opportunity with Michigan. They still have the Big Ten tournament. Do they not have an Ohio State regular season match?
They do not have an
Yeah,
Ohio State regular
that's too
season
bad.
match. Their last match is in Big Ten play. They're going to take on Michigan State, Michigan, Nebraska. And then they do have an Iowa match, who you mentioned has been quietly a top 30 team, and I could have thrown them on this list as well had I chosen to. But, yeah, they would have really benefited from that Ohio State matchup just to get another top 16 look in the regular season.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the Iowa win will help them, right? They'll factor into one of their best 9 wins. So, yeah, there's a lot more room for them to chew off here.
Yeah, excited to watch them. And again, a couple of those teams still very much in the top 16 hunt. Last but not least, NCAA Bubble Watch, because these are programs we've been monitoring all season long. Programs who right now, typically that cutoff line 42 through 44 in the rankings for non-conference champions, or what is colloquially known as at-large bids. These teams right now are good, Jay. But I'll tell you what, again, the cases, they're going to sweat a little as we come towards the end of April. Florida, who this weekend knocked off 5-2 by Tennessee, 4-3 by Kentucky. Obviously, they have a loss to Missouri on their resume as well. You feel like we're fortunate if we get 5, let alone 6 healthy Florida players in a lineup on any given day. And obviously, it's year one for Pear. I am not anyway infringing upon his future there. Pear succeeds. He will succeed at Florida. But this year's they've been limping along here in this 2025 season.
I don't think they're on bubble watch though.
Well, I think they're going to get in.
No, they're done. They're out.
They're not getting in.
They're 8-11. They're 8-11.
500 rule. I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh my
They're
God.
8-11, and they have 2 regular season matches against LSU and Mississippi.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Even if they win them both, they have to go 2-1 then in the SEC tournament. An SEC tournament where they're playing one of those top 8 teams round 2, even if they get through round 1. And then they probably have to beat LSU, and then maybe they have to beat LSU again. Probably with Kayla Cross that time. I didn't even think about that, Jay. So good I included them here. Shout out to me.
Do you know the last time Florida missed the NCAA tournament?
19 is a trick question. They never have.
They have.
Okay, 1979.
With the NCAA tournament started for women in 1982.
Okay, so they missed it that year. So I'm right.
The answer is close, 86.
Okay, wow, 86.
That was back when it was 16 teams.
They weren't there for Pern Fours? Wow. Yeah, Florida, fascinating. Next up on the list. What about Clemson? Now I have to look at all these teams in the 500 rule and make sure I'm not being stupid. Clemson right now sitting at 13-10, so they're probably fine there. They're 37 in the country. They were top 20 earlier in this season. There are a lot of freshmen on this roster in year 2 for Boomer Esiason. Tough losses for him this weekend, though. 4-0 to Notre Dame and then knocked off 4-3 by a Louisville team who's gotten dangerous here late in ACC play. But again, this Clemson team, like Texas, kind of reminding us, sometimes it does take freshmen a little bit to get acclimated.
Yeah, I mean, that Louisville loss really stings.
Yeah, that one hurts, certainly. But again, I do expect them to get in. How about my frisky team of the year, Kentucky? 11-11 overall on the season, so flirting with the 500 rule. They get a 4-3 win over Florida, knocked off 4-2 by Auburn, but again, play that Auburn team closely. You look at some of the losses they've had this season, 4-2 with LSU and Tennessee, 4-2 with Texas. They've played 4-2 with Auburn here. They play good teams close, Jay. This team is frisky. They're 30 in the country right now.
So they have 3 matches left on their schedule. Vanderbilt, which should be a loss, Missouri, and St. Louis. So
and the SEC conference tournament.
And they'll have the conference tournament. So they have scheduled appropriately. That doubleheader, Missouri and St. Louis, is smart. I think they will be able to get in.
So let me just give a shout out then, because yes, you're absolutely right. They did schedule appropriately, and so need to give a shout out, obviously. A congratulations to you, Coach Shelley. I'm going to mispronounce her last name. Jowden. Apologies to you that I mispronounced it, but she's done a hell of a job this year. Again, I really enjoy watching this Kentucky team compete. They're feisty everywhere, put a ton of balls in play. They make you earn it. Frisky team of the year. Good scheduling.
I went to the Bresky School of Scheduling. I'm seeing a lot of comfortable wins for them in this schedule.
A lot of doubleheaders. Don't hate the play. I hate the game. All right. What about Kansas? Big victory for the Jayhawks. They've been part of a Big 12 middle pack that's beaten each other up. Them, TCU, Arizona schools, etc. All those teams right around 500 in conference play. They get a have-to-have win, 4-2 over Iowa State. Where are you with Coach Chapman and the Jayhawks, Jay?
Not great.
Tournament team.
Barely.
Again, this middle of the Big 12 pack, we talked about it might get funky. And by the way, for TCU, tough weekend. They're 40 in the country now, flirting with that bubble. They're knocked off by Arizona State, respectively. Again, Arizona State 7-4, TCU 7-5, BYU, Kansas State, all 6-5 in conference play. I said it was going to get funky. It has gotten funky, Jay, in the Big 12. They have all beaten each other up. Even the top 3 teams, UCF, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, all 10-1.
Yeah, and they'll beat each other, right? Or I guess we're still waiting for the UCF.
UCF's loss was this UCF and Oklahoma State don't play. I think there is.
No, they already played UCF and Oklahoma State.
Oh no, sorry, not UCF and Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State and Texas Tech don't play. I think that was one of the matches that got canceled. And I am looking at Texas Tech's schedule this weekend. They've got the Arizona, so they do not play Oklahoma State. How's that tiebreaker going to work? If if Texas Tech beat UCF, UCF beat Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State didn't beat either of them, is it just a three-way split? Like, how do we do the number one seed? I'm going to have to open the rule book. Jay, I'm calling the Big 12 championships.
Well, don't get into that Big 12 rule book. We saw that thing at the Big 12 conference
I
tournament
think I
last
do
year.
need to get into it so that I'm
Someone
prepared.
should. Someone should have rewritten that rule book, is
My
what they
guy
should
Nick,
have done.
my guy Nick Williams is on it. I got no doubt about that. But yeah, tough weekend for TCU. Once again, they are right on the bubble. And again, Big 12 tournament's going to be a war. That first round, BYU's getting hot. Talked about them last weekend. Fascinating bubble watch, Jay, as all of these teams, again, look to make a push for conference play. And by the way, again, fans at home, you want to project. How does a win this weekend or a 1-1 weekend, how does it impact my team in the rankings moving forward? By the way, not only my team, but I want to project for the other teams as well to know how the teams around my team are doing. What if calculator, God's gift, given to us by Chris Halioris. You can project all of these things with a few clicks of the button. If you think that's not my tomorrow morning, or like everything heading into conference play, I've been spending a lot of time there. Looking forward to it. You should as well. Shout out to Chris for making that resource available to the public. Jay, that's everything from a bubble watch perspective. Again, there were some other results, I suppose, we have left on the table from the past weekend. I mentioned the Georgia win over Vandy. They also beat Missouri, another 2-0 weekend for A&M, a 2-0 weekend for NC State, who knock off Florida State and Miami, though Florida State and Miami each get 2-0 wins over a Wake Forest team that just missed out on Bubble Watch segment here today. Good weekend for Ohio State, but there's some upsets in the Big Ten. Maryland over Iowa, Indiana over Michigan State. Like, again, big win today. Rice ultimately the win 4-3 over FIU. They also got a 4-0 over Wichita State today. Excuse me, they got a 4-3 win over FIU this weekend. Sacramento State 4-3 over Long Beach State. Jay, I mean, again, there were some upsets. Do you think we hit anything? Everything? Anything else you want to mention?
Alabama fielding only 5 players versus Texas. And then that Ohio State-Illinois match, I don't think we talked about it. 4-1 Ohio State, but Illinois put up a fantastic fight.
Sweaty.
5 3-set matches. It was a great match.
Yeah, and by the way, Big Ten's kind of beating up on each other too. You look for Illinois 5-5, Northwestern 4-6. I was looking at the cutoff right now. Northwestern's 44, Illinois 45. They play this weekend. Like, that was almost one of my tier 1 matches because it has such significant NCAA tournament implications and it's an interstate rivalry. Like, that one's gonna be fire. And Illinois is they're grinders. Like, they play everyone tight. They make you sweat. They make you earn it. I'm glad you brought that up because I agree.
And they're both below the cut line in projection, so it's a must win. And they have a lot of room on their rankings. They still have some 4-pointers down there, so a win will go a very far way for one of those two teams.
Have to have it. Look forward to watching it play out, certainly, and we'll talk about it more in the week ahead. Before we get there, Jay, as always, let's talk about that race for the top 8, the race for the top 16. Again, looking at the current ITA rankings, you know the teams: Georgia 1, A&M 2, Duke, as Jay mentioned, rising to 3 in the rankings. Oklahoma, as we mentioned, up to 4. Michigan 5, UNC 6. UVA still sitting at 7. They do have a strong resume, even if, again, they have limped through this regular season. Auburn currently your 8. Tennessee 9, Ohio State 10, LSU falling to 11 after their losses here this weekend. Other loss here this weekend. You look at the projected rankings according to Chris's website: Georgia 1, A&M 2, Duke 3, Michigan 4, Oklahoma 5, Virginia 6, Auburn 7, North Carolina at that 8 spot. I mean, again, I feel like we're given Michigan and Ohio State still play at least one more time. I won't eliminate them from this race. Feels rude to NC State and Vanderbilt to eliminate them from this race, but I just don't know if they have the depth of wins to get there. Even, I mean, sans a run to the conference tournament final, whatever it may be. Are we at 11 for 8? Like Georgia through LSU, those are the 11 teams really fighting it out in the rank. It does feel like those are all, by the way, 11 top 8 quality teams, and they're all still jousting it out.
Yeah, I mean, there are still runs that an NC State or Vanderbilt could make in their respective tournaments.
Certainly.
To get them into a top 8. Does it feel realistic? Probably not.
I also don't think they have the depth of resume from the season to be in that tier. Just like we have seen glimpses, certainly from NC State. And obviously we waxed poetically about Vanderbilt earlier on this show. But the depth of resume and the length of resume dating back to January, I think those two teams lack it in the way the other 11 do. That's why I wouldn't put them on that list. I would put those two obviously as locks, as I mentioned earlier, for my personal top 16. I know Cal right now sitting at 19 would be one of my other personal locks as well. I think they're pretty clearly one of the 16 best teams in the country. I'm still reserving a spot for the Big 12 winner. I don't know what to do with that 16th spot. Like Washington, USC, Texas right now is sitting at 14. Like it looks like they are in a good position to grab it. But man, like again, as I mentioned, I think I know who 14 of my best teams are. I'm going to give the Big 12 winner the 15th spot. And then I just got to figure out my 16. And my personal top 16 is almost set.
Well, is Texas in your list or no?
No, they are not on my list. They are by ranking, but on my personal list, they are still one of the bubble teams competing. They have not shown me enough to say they're definitive top 16.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you reserve a spot for the Big 12 winner or the Big 12, tournament winner, and then the
tournament champion,
Big 10, like second runner up, whether that is a Washington or a USC. So behind Michigan and Ohio State, like feels like that would make sense.
And you think Texas boxes out Cal?
I think Cal's better. Cal would beat Texas right now.
But by math, I do feel like Cal, barring a run to the ACC, maybe final. Like maybe they really do need one of those signature top 12 victories to beat an NC State, a Virginia, a UNC, a Duke again. Maybe even beat two of them just because of how lacking their early season resume was.
Yeah.
They are one of the 16 best teams. And if they're not seeded, first of all, they'll be 17, 18, or 19, so this will be far from a hot take, but they're going to be the best team going anywhere that first weekend of the NCAA tournament. I think it's better for the field if they are seeded, just in terms of seeding equity. But, man, they need a run.
They're also not going to beat out anyone on the seeding like criteria, right? In terms of top 50 wins, they have 4.
Yeah.
Like
they're lacking.
Yeah.
They need to make probably the ACC tournament final. And
they needed one of those wins this weekend, to be honest.
Absolutely. And again, they have the quality. But all right, let's just go through our rankings then quickly. We both still have Georgia and A&M 1 and 2.
Yep.
You have Michigan 3.
Yep.
You stay consistent. I respect that. I still have Duke at number 3. Did you go Duke 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I went Oklahoma 4, and I went Michigan 5.
Wow, you went Oklahoma 4.
Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's why I did that. I'm going to adhere to the NCAA tournament principle of like the head-to-head victory has to mean something. And given we have talked all season how the margins between these teams are nothing, I'm going to give Oklahoma that slight head-to-head advantage. Like their Texas loss is Michigan's NC State Duke weekend. Again, Michigan has beaten Ohio State. Michigan has beaten Texas. Michigan has beaten LSU. But Oklahoma's got some really good wins as well, including that win over Michigan. So all things being equal, I'm going to give Oklahoma that slight nod at 4, and that's just a boost to the SEC conference play they've gone through. But
so they moved up from 8 to 4 for you based on beating a crossless LSU.
And the totality of the resume. It's like now at this point, you got to factor those things in when the margins are so thin. Like, no, truth is, I had them at 5. And then I said, well, wait. Head-to-head, they beat Michigan. Like, that just feels a little hypocritical to not just make that flop for the sake of making that flop. So I made the flop, Jay. And I don't feel bad about it with the margins being as thin as they are.
I think the hard part here is now LSU has become our new Virginia. Because an LSU team without Caleb Cross is not a top 10 team.
Are they a top 16, though?
Sure.
Okay, I agree.
Particularly because...
I wouldn't say not top 10, I'd say not top 8.
Not top 10. And so now we have another one of them. And so where do you rank them? Are we including Kayla Cross or are we not? Not a fun exercise to do. I am including them with her in my rankings.
Okay, so do you have Oklahoma at 5 or no? You still
have LSU
there?
I have North Carolina at 5.
I like that. So North Carolina's my 8. And... I mean, that's interesting. They did.
I'm telling you,
all these others couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, you love a good resume.
Yeah.
North Carolina's up 2-0 against almost all of these teams.
They take doubles, and what's the second?
And Reese.
And Reese. against DJ, against Candace, against Shahar Banina.
Yes.
Yeah, but they're just not as calloused as all of these teams. Like, all of these teams have been in wars. And look, I really like this UNC team. I like the talent that they possess. They're still a young group. Like, they're just not as callous. They haven't played the 4-3s every weekend that all of these SEC teams
For
have
sure.
found themselves in. And I just
Yeah.
think that matters for me with postseason play on the horizon. So that's why I gave just about everyone in the SEC the bump. So I went Auburn 6, LSU 7, UNC 8, Tennessee 9. I guess did you go Oklahoma 7? I mean, or LSU 6, Oklahoma 7?
No.
Okay,
I
just
have
give me the order.
I have North Carolina 5, LSU
Okay.
6, Tennessee 7, Virginia
Ooh.
8, Oklahoma 9, Ohio State 10.
Tennessee 8. Tennessee 7, you said Auburn 8, Oklahoma 9, and Ohio State 10. I too have Ohio State 10 for what it's worth.
Yeah. They're slotted there until they have this Michigan match.
Oklahoma, again, to go through the resume one more time. Like, yes, they beat the crossless LSU. That's fair. But it is just worth remembering. Again, they beat Auburn 4-3. Like, I guess they lost to Tennessee 4-3. That one hurts. But they beat Vanderbilt 4-2 as well. I mean, again, they played a crossless LSU. They've beaten Michigan. It's so interesting. I mean, the margins are so thin. It's so hard to make this. It's been this exercise all year long. So to Jay's point, as we talked about in our opening monologue, has anything really changed? No. We've known this group for a while. Again, after that, just because I ranked things out, I went NC State 11, Cal 12, UVA 13, Vanderbilt 14, Big 12 winner 15, and then I stopped. That's where I am right now in my race to the top 16 in terms of who I think the 16 best teams are. Again, we can get into the numbers here next week. But, yeah, the biggest mover for me, Oklahoma. Not a ton of movement from you, Jay, in your rankings. I think the only team to drop out of your rankings, you dropped out UVA. You brought in Auburn. Yeah, so, all right, fair enough. That's where things stand with the final weekend of conference regular season play ahead for the SEC, for the ACC, for the Big 12. And with that in mind, let's talk about what this final weekend looks like. Let's preview the week ahead. You'd think we'd have played everything out by now. Not the case. As you look at the SEC, not only do we have Texas at Georgia, which would be a really fun match if that was the only match Georgia played, we get the long-awaited rematch. A&M versus Georgia, first time since the national indoors. Could be the first of 3 times again these teams play in the next 5 to 6 weeks with the SEC championship, the NCAA championships coming up. By the way, these teams played 4 times last year as well. We're on the pathway, Jay, and we get to see it. 1 versus 2 in Athens. I'm sure it will be a special environment. If that wasn't enough,
It's in College Station.
Oh, in College Station, excuse me. So different environment, which makes sense because last year it was obviously in Athens, and you were there to watch that match play out. Does that mean Georgia's at Texas as well?
Yeah, they're doing the Texas swing.
At Austin, at College Station, the final regular season weekend for the number 1 team in the country. Could sign me up. That's all you could ask for.
So, question for you.
Okay.
We are getting the number 1 versus number 2 team in the country on the final weekend of the SEC.
Okay.
Feels fitting for a season finale. However, we're probably going to get that same match in a few short days' time in the SEC tournament. Would you rather this match be played sort of middle of the season to let it breathe a little bit, and then we have the SEC tournament? It's a leading question because I feel like it's too condensed.
Yes and no. It would be great to spread the love. And it feels selfish to have these 2 teams play this much, this late in the season when, again, it could have been distributed better. But, selfishly, if these are the 2 best teams in the country, as they have been all season long, as the narrative has been dating back to the preseason, and you're telling me we're going to get to see them go head-to-head probably 3 times with serious stakes on the line, SEC regular season championship, SEC tournament championship, potentially NCAA championship on the line, and these have been in our minds, and I like to think you and I are probably the Stephen A. Smiths combined of college tennis, and that we have these platforms for ourselves, and we like to talk the loudest. I want to see them play as much as possible. Like, you're getting 1 versus 2. It's like, by the end, we should know between these 2 teams who is the better team between them. There will be no secrets between them. There are already no secrets. But, no, like, again, other sports are different. Hardcore college tennis fans tune in at all moments, but you want your best teams to play in the postseason with the most on the line, and that we get that so consecutively. That the SEC regular season wasn't decided 4 weeks ago because of the result of this match. No, we're going to decide it on the last weekend. It means you can't be unengaged. It means you can't be outside for the first warm spring day. You got to still be glued to your laptop and follow this. And now you got to be glued because you know this matchup could happen again the following week and again 3 weeks later. So I actually kind of like it. And it gets these teams calloused up of like, hey, this is like UNC, NC State, and Cary, where it was like, all right, like this is the team. We now have the benchmarks. This is where they're at. This is where we're at. We have a month and a half. Let's get our shit together.
Yeah, I mean, nothing says postseason like a national championship rematch.
Yeah, and so I see your point, but I love that Georgia's in Austin in College Station for their final weekend. That's just awesome. By the way, you've got LSU at Auburn. We've been waiting on this one for a long time. Hopefully we have Kayla Cross there. Tennessee at Vanderbilt is now a fascinating interstate rivalry, and you got to throw it tier 1. Cal and Stanford at NC State. For Cal in particular, if you want to be top 16, it starts with this win. You can get the extra road points. And then, as we mentioned earlier, same thing for Washington. You're at Michigan. Show us how good you are. Jay, that's my tier 1. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic tier 1.
Yeah. Would you LSU, Auburn? Who you got? Let's just do it. Actually, let's start. We'll get them last. LSU at Auburn.
A crossless LSU, Auburn wins.
Tennessee at Vandy.
I think Vandy gets this one.
NC State's record.
Well, Michaela Lackey retired against Alexa Knoll. If she's not there, I think they're going to go 1-1. I think Cal's going to win that match.
Washington at Michigan.
Oof. I think this is 4-3. I think Michigan wins.
Georgia, Texas swing.
Well, they're going to beat Texas. Although, in the same way we led with Texas A&M versus Georgia, if they're thinking that way, they could very well overlook this Texas team.
And Texas is way better as underdogs. Young freshmen playing with nothing to lose, that's what you want.
Yep. I think they're going to go 2-0. But Texas A&M has like what, a 66-match win streak at home. So there's a lot on the line for this Georgia team. Outright SEC title, snapping that streak. It's going to be really fun.
Very, very excited. All right, I just need predictions here. These are matches with significant postseason implications. Illinois at Northwestern.
Illinois.
Kansas State at Kansas.
Kansas.
UCF at BYU.
Well, we saw the men get tripped up with this match, but I do think the UCF women get through.
They'll be ready for it. TCU at Baylor.
Baylor.
UCSB at Pepperdine.
Well, we're going to see Broadus back in the lineup. She was out for that Washington match. I will go Pepperdine, though.
Crossless LSU at Florida.
Well, a crossless LSU beats a playerless Florida, so I'm going to go LSU.
Okay, South Carolina at Texas. That one's fun.
Yeah.
Last regular season for Hamner.
I know. I'm going to say Texas gets through that, though.
Arizona State at Texas Tech.
Oof, such a tough place to play. I think Texas Tech wins both of those.
And then we mentioned this team superficially. USC, UCLA at Iowa. I'm just saying, like, this is the weekend, Iowa. Grab us a win, please.
I mean, Penn State did it.
It's very true.
There's just some irony, I feel like, in UCLA and USC going to Iowa and going on the road. What a classic rivalry match these are. I'm going to go, the LA schools go 2-0.
All right, fair enough. Well, again, folks, it's the last weekend of regular season play. SEC, ACC, Big 12. We'll have coverage of it Thursday through Sunday, of course, on ESPN+. Hopefully, I don't know which of the days they're playing A&M versus Georgia, but that's a clear your schedule for the match. And again, it's the first of 3. Home winning streak for A&M. SEC regular season conference title on the line. Buckle your seatbelts. That one is going to be so fun. That said, Jay, that's everything I got here as we look back at the week that was and as we look towards the week ahead. Any fun things you got on the horizon for us as it relates to the No Ad, No Problem podcast, or just any other things you got in mind as we get ready for this regular season to wrap?
Yeah, I mean, I will be in person this weekend for Stanford Cal men's match, which has
Mm.
significant top eight implications, which I'm sure you and Chris will talk about tomorrow. So excited to see that in person. And then it's like we're gonna have to do conference previews and all
Mhm.
sorts of fun stuff. So this is the time of month to these are the two big months, April
I'm
and
gonna
May.
I'm gonna be on the road in Waco, but I'll have things to set up. We will find a way to record a lot of podcasts next week. Like that's when we double down and make up for the lack of live shows this year. We're gonna go live a lot over the course of the month of April as postseason play is on the horizon. Forget March Madness; that's in the rearview mirror. It's all about May Madness. And by the way, thank you to all of you who went to the CR merch store, bought yourself some gear. We appreciate that. Maybe we'll do more runs like that in the future if requested by you, the fans. And yeah, again, I cannot believe it's already April 8th. I cannot believe we are already at the penultimate weekend of SEC, ACC, Big 12 play. But,
No, this is the ultimate weekend.
well, it's the penultimate in terms of play in general for the conferences because the conference tournament's the last weekend
Sure.
of it. It's like, that's what I meant by that there. I was just trying to sneak it in twice here, Jay. Um, but yeah, we're here. It's April. May's on the horizon. Get to the what if calculator. Get to the projected rankings. Make sure you're subscribed to this show. Make sure you're subscribed to the Cracked Rackets YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to No Ad, No Problem. And by the way, a shout out and thank you to the support we get from our friends at the Laurel Springs School. Again, Laurel Springs, proud to partner with us here at Cracked Rackets. And certainly we are proud of their mission to engage global learners in an education that values them as individuals, integrates their passions and pursuits into academic and career pathways, fosters inquiry, growth, mastery, purpose, and independence. They believe each student has special interests, goals, talents, and a unique learning style best served from an educational process that recognizes them as individuals, provides a flexible approach to learning, and enables them to pursue their dreams. Now, there's a reason Laurel Springs schools are used by so many who compete in college tennis today, and there's a reason they've ranked amongst the best online private schools in the country for multiple years now. To learn about the resources they provide, laurelsprings.com. Laurel Springs, proud partner of Cracked Rackets. With that said, for my fantastic co-host, John J. Parsons, our super producer, Daniel Westoff, and from all of us here at Cracked Rackets, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Jay, what do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone.